Alright, I've been wanting to make a video just talking about what's on my mind lately, and something definitely came up. Actually, there's several things I could mention in this video alone, and I was going to do 1 hour just me going through several topics. However, this is something that I really want to dish out there and see what however people feel, because I feel like that whenever I mention this is misinterpreted greatly. And so, and what's the possibility of it happening? Zero. However, I do want to just place it in the minds. So the topic is no story modes in video games, and however this can be achieved decently well. However, there are a lot of games, especially for older games, where you cannot skip cutscenes. So what does this mean for me and me personally? Well, if you think about speedruns, video game speedruns, skipping cutscenes, of course, they want to get through the game as fast as they can. So this is already being done manually, obviously. However, how much can be reduced? How can you exclude yourself from the story mode as much as possible? You have problems like what I ran into in God of War Ragnarok, where the characters were spoiling the puzzles if you took too long. That is not acceptable. And I wish there was an option. You can actually... I remember in High on Life, where I didn't want the cussing as much. So you could turn it down, and it actually works. However, something like that needs to be in God of War, in a game like God of War Ragnarok, where you can just turn off the hints. And I don't know if they, forgive me for not looking it up before saying this, but they may have added the fact that you can deactivate them giving you clues. However, as far as I know, the only way you can avoid it is to mute the voices. You turn the voices all the way down, or just mute the game in general, which sucks, and disable the subtitles. And so that was basically the genesis of how I was starting to come up with all this, I believe. And I was looking at my PSN profiles just to see. Assassin's Creed 3 came up in my brain recently. I knew I haven't finished it, and so I looked up my trophy list, and I noticed that I finished sequence 6, and I never finished the game. That is actually the middle of the game. That's actually when the game starts getting really good. So I'm just wondering to myself, what could be the problem here? Actually, I have it pulled up right now. I completed sequence 6 on August 11th, 2013. Now, what is the significance of 2013? I was just thinking, when did The Last of Us come out? The Last of Us release date, June 14th. So there's a possibility my mind was on... Actually, no. Correction. I did not want to play The Last of Us when it first came out, because I thought it was just a generic zombie game, which was one of the biggest misjudgments I've ever had. It's actually one of my favorite games of all time, and at first I just didn't want it. So I think what happened was I got distracted, and then on top of me eventually getting into The Last of Us, Dark Souls 2 was right around the corner. Let me look up exactly when Dark Souls 2 came out. I know I'm just trying to find... Okay, Dark Souls 2 didn't come out till March 11th, 2014. So, I think what happened was perhaps I mainly got drowned out in The Last of Us. I don't know. I'm just kind of coming up with my own sort of theories on why I got separated from Assassin's Creed 3, because replaying it now, I got the remaster for the PS4. And I'm actually enjoying it. But that being said, I'm skipping all the cutscenes. I'm going straight forward, not doing anything optional, even though I don't really see anything optional. The game's not exactly poking me to do anything optional. It's mainly just follow the yellow icon, so that's what I've been doing. And so I was looking at playthroughs, speedruns, and such, just to see exactly what sequence 7 was, what could have actually got me to quit. And I think vaguely what caused me to quit also to take a break. Sometimes you get to a certain point in a video game where it gets rather difficult. There's a difficulty spike, and just about every video game has this, and I think Assassin's Creed 3 also has this as well. And it's about sneaking around the boat. And I think when I looked up the sequence, my memory kind of awakened, and I remember this spot on the boat where he had to sneak around, and I think that discouraged me. And I believe there were several things on top of that. I'm pretty sure I was playing Dark Souls on the regular. However, I cannot remember that precisely, and I would look up, go through data logs of my trophies, but I'm not going to do that. I don't want to burden you with that information. This is just extra information, and I need to get back to the topic on hand. So, anyway, I'm going through Assassin's Creed 3 through my no story mode kind of setting, my manual setting for no story mode, which is simply mainly just skipping the cutscenes, and I'm enjoying the game quite well. There's also a burnout theory that I have. I think maybe I was also burnt out and then I got frustrated at the difficulty peak. So it is very useful to me, and I understand this is not a very popular take on gaming, but I really just don't care about what most video games have to do with their story. And heck, I wish I could get more involved with the stories. The Last of Us is a game, in my opinion, rather started this whole thing. Now, Assassin's Creed was doing it a while before The Last of Us, but I feel like The Last of Us really set it off. Assassin's Creed has slow walking. Assassin's Creed had segments where you just stand there and listen to people talk. You walk around and listen to the talk. You protect. Actually, The Last of Us, I feel like you don't have to protect people in The Last of Us, I believe. And so they took that aspect out. But The Last of Us really refined the whole interactive story, in my opinion. They actually had more gameplay associated with this interactive story. And a lot of games, I don't want to just make this video just to bash on other games I just do not like, because I'm already setting off a lot of fires here, I believe, if any, whoever listens. But I'm also wondering, you know, where could this fit in? For example, you have something like God of War where it says, give me a story. What if there's a setting called give me no story? And it's funny. Yeah, I mean, I find it funny. I think it would be a great option for people that just don't care about stories. And I know I'm not the only person out there that's like this. Whenever I buy a video game, I want to play the game. Most of the time, I don't care about the story, like I said before. I just want to get to the gameplay. And sometimes the cutscenes are really good. Like Batman Arkham Asylum. That game has gameplay priority, however, the cutscenes are also really good, and I feel like that's really something that's very important to draw me in. If you start a cutscene and it looks like any basic generic cutscene, more than likely I'm going to skip it because I just don't care. However, you throw me into something that looks intense immediately, you kind of grab my attention rather well. Assassin's Creed has this problem, in my opinion, where there's a cutscene that starts and there's just two people talking, and what they're talking about is not interesting to me, at least. So there's just so much exposition I do not care about, and that's a big problem in video games. And once again, I'm going to say this a lot, address this a lot, in my opinion. Maybe a lot of people love exposition, they love things over-explained. I do not. I do not care for that. And so what I would like in a no story mode is no cutscenes, no dialogue, just get me to no slow walking, no following NPCs, no, depending on how you do it, no protecting the NPCs. Just get me to the core of the gameplay. Assassin's Creed 3 is actually very slow on getting you to the core gameplay. It's actually one of the slowest games I've ever seen, and I know there are games that are slower out there and I just haven't experienced them because I do not give them the time. Take Persona 5 for example. Persona 5 takes a ridiculous amount of time to get to the core gameplay. However, Assassin's Creed has a sprinkle of the core gameplay throughout, so it's tolerable for me. So I think Assassin's Creed 3, I could do without everything before you become before you actually put the cowl on and become the assassin. That would be fantastic if you could just skip to that part of the game where the game opens up like that, because I really don't care about all that build up, because I can just and I don't need all that training. If you need that training, it's there, take it. However, I can just learn and adapt with the challenges that come towards me that the game gives me. And I'm just speaking just assuming that the game is going to change drastically for Assassin's Creed 3, and it looks like it does. The game, I looked at a speedrun playthrough, whatever, and it looks like the gameplay vastly improves once you get the cowl. So I asked a few people. I made a poll on my YouTube channel. Should video games have a no story mode? And obviously, the majority said no. I think maybe one person said yes. And I expected that. And a lot of people, they say stuff like, oh, well, that just increases developer time. But really, does it? Will it increase direct? I mean, you can skip cutscenes already. But why not just have something automatic? I don't understand why this would be extra work when developers already put in even more time for other accommodations. You got to think about assist features. And I don't think there's too much trouble by adding invincibility mode to video games. All you gotta do is just flip a switch, I'm assuming. I don't think it takes hours upon hours to implement an invincibility mode. I'm not a game developer, but that just doesn't really sound that complicated in my opinion, because it exists in so many video games. I don't think so many video games would do it if it was that difficult to implement. You got accommodations that also remove stuff like spiders. Evil West has an option, I think Hogwarts Legacy as well, where you can actually disable spiders. I'm just wondering, I haven't heard a single person where they're like, oh my goodness, I hate spiders so much, and I'm so glad that they have this feature. But that being said, why is it too much to ask for a no story mode? When you have, because I'm in the minority, but people that don't like spiders and want them disabled from video games, that's also a minority. There can't be that much of a difference in terms of percentage. It's got to be about equal in terms of people that do not want the story and people that don't want spiders. In fact, there's probably more people that want a no story mode more than people that don't want spiders in their video games. So that's there, that's deactivated, that's gone. So I'm just curious. It's something I'm very curious about. I want to see how everybody else feels about this. And I could go more in the depth. I'm just coming off fresh off of a long Assassin's Creed 3 run, where like I said before, I'm skipping cutscenes whenever I can, skipping dialogue whenever I can. And there's actually quite a bit of shortcuts. I mean, the game's not complicated, at least right now. Obviously, I'm in training mode. The tutorial, from what I've heard, is 7 hours long, with a sprinkle of the core gameplay. And I've had this idea of what would it be like to showcase a game with my vision of no story mode. Sorry about that, I got interrupted. I'm going to see if I can try to jump back on here. So really to conclude this video, and anyone that wants to join in on this discussion, and it's just for fun. And as I said at the very beginning of this video, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. It's not, unless they just implement a speedrun option, which I don't know how developers feel about people speedrunning their levels. I don't watch I understand there are videos of developers watching speedrun playthroughs, but I don't know what their true opinion is on that. So, I mean, I don't know what speedrunning rules are. I don't know if that perhaps doesn't count if you have an automatic skip for something like that. But if you want me to go in more detail, perhaps maybe you got something saying, hey, you know, what about something like this? You know, how would you recommend that? And my conclusion is whatever gets me to the core gameplay. You know, God of War, for example. I love the original God of War games. I love their stories. Therefore, I'm going to more than likely sit there and watch the cutscenes because, oh my goodness, the original God of War games, their cutscenes are masterfully well executed. And the new God of War games, I'm trying not to get too far into it because I realize that a lot of people do love the new God of War games, but you know, it's just not there for me personally. And I'm not saying that they're bad. I just think that the whole one-shot thing is compromising a lot of artistic vision. I listened to someone talk about how people don't like the whole depressed Kratos thing, and they mentioned that Kratos was very depressed in the first one, and he's right. However, that depression is captured so much better in God of War 1 than it is in the new God of War games, only because that the cinematic artistry in these angles and how how Kratos perceives his depression is so much better. And I don't want to have this perspective. I don't want to skip through stories. I want stories to be good so I can listen and have a story and be impactful. However, for most games, it's just cookie cutter to me, especially with the Assassin's Creed games. I stopped playing Assassin's Creed really at Assassin's Creed 3, which is why I'm picking it back up, because I'm seeing the mess as Assassin's Creed is now, and I'm not really going to make it there probably. I re-downloaded Assassin's Creed Odyssey. I bought it at a really good deal, and once I catch up and get to that point, I'm going to start playing that. I might start playing at Assassin's Creed 3 after I finish Assassin's Creed 3, because I think I barely started Revelations, and I barely started Black Flag, so I want to go through those two if I get really engaged with Assassin's Creed 3. But anyway, before I go on to another topic, I want to see how everybody feels about this. Definitely comment. Please, let's have a discussion about this. And even if you want to have a podcast on discussing this topic alone, let's do it. And so we can go more into detail. I can actually write down notes before the conversation, or if you just want to have a text chat in the comment section, that's just fine. But thank you very much. Let me know how you feel.